All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to I Can Steal That. I'm your host, Pete Stegmeyer. This is episode 20, and it feels like a bit of a milestone. So, thank you guys for all your support getting us to 20. In the last episode, we actually announced our Patreon launch. And today, I just wanted to reach out and say thank you to the patrons who have already signed up. So, huge thanks to Chris Reed, Andrew, and Stephanie for your support. That's been super helpful, and it's really appreciated. We are also only two iTunes reviews away from our first non-Patreon bonus episode. And it's going to be a fun one. It's already recorded. And the quicker we get to 50 reviews, the quicker I can get that posted. You don't want to miss it, so definitely go ahead and check that out. So our guest today is one of my favorite New York City comics. He was one of the Caroline's Breakout series. Last year, he was also part of the New Faces at the New York Comedy Festival, which is extremely prestigious. And he's just generally a great friend. Ralph Anthony is with me today.
Hey, what's going on, brother? How you feeling?
I'm living the dream. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. Thank you. Yeah.
All right. I don't know if that's going to continue. I've got a pretty bad joke coming up in the next segment.
Okay.
Yeah. So we actually we do a fair number of stick ups in the show, but today we are going to be talking about a sticky up. That's right. Today we're going to be talking about the Great Canadian Maple Syrup Heist because that is a real thing that happened, and I do jokes like that because comedy is dead.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I like doing the dumb jokes for me. Like that's what that is.
Yeah, I can dig it, dude.
So Ralph, what do you know about maple syrup?
I know that I love it on my pancakes and waffles. I know the best stuff comes from Canada. So this is perfect for this episode. And I know that it's great for your hair. I actually put it in my hair to slick it back to keep it nice in place when I have to go out to any formal events that are on Zoom now.
That's really smart. That's called the Montreal greaser look.
Which is surprising because the other Montreal greaser is getting a reach around with maple syrup.
All right, that is. I'm going to take your word for that one. I learned way more about syrup researching this episode than I ever thought I could, but a lot of it is actually important. You were 100% right that the best stuff is from Canada. So before we get into the heist, I feel like it's kind of important to do a little bit of education about syrup because it just kind of helps with the context, and also it's kind of interesting. Like if you're a weird nerd like me, it's kind of fun. I like syrup.
Yeah, I feel like you might be like the Bill Nye of maple syrup now. Like you know all the facts.
I do. There are exactly 9 facts about syrup, and I've got them all right here. All right. So first off, we're not talking about generic American maple syrup or not even maple syrup, but generic American syrup, like Aunt Jemima or anything like that. Like the stuff you get, like the boysenberry at IHOP. Like all of that is like corn syrup that's made to taste like maple syrup. And that is not what we're talking about. We are going to be talking about brown gold, which is basically the real stuff. It comes obviously from maple trees, and it is a heck of a process to make it. So basically, the process consists of finding a maple tree, tapping it, and that's basically hammering in a little spigot into the tree. And your average tree can support between 1 and 3 taps, depending on the size. And from there, you could usually each tree will do about 9 to 13 gallons of sap per season.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
So it takes a lot of trees to make syrup. And what's interesting about that too is I always thought when I was a kid that maple syrup you just tap a maple tree and you can just drink it right out of the tree.
Yeah, I mean that's what they show in like movies and like shows, right?
Exactly. Like that's what I like. I legit thought that. Like I grew up in Wisconsin, and there was like Paul Bunyan was a big thing, and they would always have him like doing like the flapjacks, but then there would be like the guy like getting the maple syrup and just basically putting it on the pancakes like straight out of the tree. And that is not the case. It actually, so for every gallon or every unit of maple syrup, it takes between 20 and 50 times that amount in sap to get that syrup. So it's basically like reduced and boiled down.
Yeah.
So you could like if you're making a gallon of syrup, it's going to take anywhere between 20 and 50 gallons of sap.
What?
Yeah,
That what? Dude, that is a ridiculous ratio.
it is a really it's not a great ratio. Like that's what 2 to 5%.
Let's see. What'd you say? 50 trees for 1 gallon?
No, not necessarily 50 trees, but at least two trees. Like if you had like 20 gallons
Oh,
per.
20 gallons. Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I miss. Yeah.
Yeah, the average is like 9 to 15 gallons, and you can get like three gallons or so in a day from the tree. So you can't like tap them like for a real long time,
Sure.
but that's usually the kind of numbers that they're pumping out. And then depending on the time of year of the harvest, you're going to get either lighter or darker syrup. And that is like the color is actually how they grade maple syrup. So the darker it is, the better.
Okay. Wow. That's wild, man. Like I would think that you could get maple syrup like anytime you want. I mean, you probably can get it every anytime you want, but like I didn't know that there's like a harvest season, you know, like everything else in the world. Like, you have apple season and whatever, pumpkins and corn and whatnot, but like you figure because
Yeah,
trees are just there.
yeah. I mean, the trees are just there, and you can kind of get it whenever you want, but like the time of year is going to impact the quality of it. So like, it might be like worse syrup comes out in the summer because like things are warmer and it's coming out a little lighter. It's a little bit more watery. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know like how the things like correlate. It could be like the best syrup is in the summer. I don't know, but but yeah, the time of year does have something to do with it.
Okay. That's good to know if I plan if we can ever leave this country and go to Canada.
Yeah. Otherwise, we're gonna have to do Vermont. Like Vermont's got good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently it's so good that that's why they were chugging it in Super Troopers.
I don't blame them. It's a good way to do it.
Do you have a go-to brand? Like what's your favorite? Do you have a favorite syrup or
I don't necessarily have like a favorite syrup, but I think that it's definitely best out of a maple leaf shaped bottle,
yeah.
like the big glass ones.
Yeah, that's official.
Like
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if it has a brand. Like I feel like the best stuff comes from like the farm stands or whatever.
Yeah. I definitely I definitely agree with you. Like if you're on like a road trip in the middle of nowhere and you stop at a diner and they put down that glass, you know, container and it's a maple leaf, you're like we're in,
Yeah,
we're in
I'm
a good spot.
almost definitely stealing that.
Is this podcast about you stealing maple syrup today?
It is. It really is. All right. So basically, like the other interesting thing that I learned about syrup for this is that pretty much all maple syrup is regulated because 70% of the world's maple syrup comes from the Quebec province of Canada, and pretty much all of the syrup from Quebec is regulated by a group called FPAC, FPAQ, and that's like the Federation of Maple Syrup Producers in Quebec. And they're basically like the mafia or like OPEC, and how OPEC does oil. And so what they do is they force producers to meet a quota each year for how much syrup they can sell. And anything that's produced that goes over the quota, so if they're like, all right, you guys can make 50 gallons of syrup this year, and say it's a really good season and you end up making 100 gallons, then like anything that's excess goes into what's called the strategic reserve or the international strategic reserve. And it's crazy, but like it's super effective. Like, and this I realize like it's gonna get a little bit more exciting, but I mean we are talking syrup here. But these quotas allow FPAC to keep a steady supply of syrup flowing to the world and gives them almost total control of the supply and demand. And it also like it helps for years where there's like good harvests or bad harvests. Like if there's bad harvests, they can still provide syrup because they've got so much in reserves. And this actually works extremely well. Like they're being able to control the supply and demand like they do uh, actually makes syrup crazy valuable. A barrel of syrup, like if you had like a 55-gallon barrel of syrup and a 55-gallon barrel of like crude oil, the syrup on average is worth 50 times more than the oil.
What?
Yeah, it's insane, right?
What? Is it because of the supply? Like, there's so much more oil on the earth than there is maple syrup, or like, is it just like a higher quality?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is like a higher quality thing. A lot of, I mean, maybe some of it has to do with the volume, but they're also like really good at just controlling the supply and demand out of it.
That's so wild, dude. I had no idea.
I had no idea either, but it makes sense, like, because a lot of times, like, you see, like, sometimes, like, even if you're at the store and they're selling like the real maple syrup, like sometimes it's like $30 a bottle.
Yeah, dude, I can't afford it. I don't have that. I don't have that kind of maple syrup money. That's what I'm trying to get. I'm trying to get maple syrup money. I
That's
have, I get that. I get the on store brand on sale maple syrup.
that's that's fair. Like I like it's like syrup that like just has a picture of corn on it because they're like not even pretending.
Yeah, no, there's no gimmicks, there's no games. There is nothing. Yeah, it's just an ear of corn. Actually, instead of a leaf, it's just an ear of corn. That's what the bottle is. It's just an ear of corn.
I like it. At least they're honest then. Like I'm okay with that. But yeah, so basically like that's all of the pretext or pretense that we needed for this episode about like how syrup works.
Okay,
And so now we can actually get into the heist itself.
nice. Yeah, dude.
All right. So remember a few minutes ago when I said that there's like an international strategic reserve?
Yeah,
Okay. That's basically just a fancy way for the like it makes them sound fancy, but basically what it is we rent warehouse space around Quebec.
oh,
And so it's not like it's like a military compound or whatever. Like the seed like the doomsday like seed vault. It's just they have a bunch of like white 55-gallon unlabeled barrels and they like pay people to keep them in their warehouse for as long as they need.
nice.
uh, yeah, and because of the fact that it's like syrup, they didn't really protect it much. They said basically that security was typically minimum. There were no cameras or alarms because they just didn't think anybody wanted to steal syrup.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's Canada. Like,
Exactly.
come on, man. I feel like Canada, everybody's just like nice, you
They
know?
they're extremely nice. It's
Like,
like
who would steal in Canada? It's amazing.
yeah, that is actually our last. We did an episode last week about a guy from Canada who did like one of the craziest heists ever, like way crazier than the syrup one. But like, yeah, not a lot of crime or like violence and stuff like that. So they just didn't really think about it. They just assumed the best of people.
Wow.
And so FPAC goes and rents a warehouse from some lady who's married to a guy named Avik Karen, which is a pretty good like AVIK. Like that's a pretty good villain name.
Yeah, if that was a villain on a Bond movie, I would definitely buy into it. I might even go see it.
I
Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited to see the new Bond. By the way,
Is it supposed to be with Idris Elba? Is that still a thing?
I I don't think so. Like I know the next one like is going to be Daniel Craig, but it's
Oh,
probably going to be his last one.
gotcha. Okay.
But we'll see. So basically, the warehouse gets rented out to Avit Karen's wife, and Karen like sees all of these like 55-gallon barrels of maple syrup, and they had about 10,000, or I think they actually ended up renting about 16,000 uh, 16,000 drums worth of storage, and each of these is 54 gallons, which is pretty insane. And so basically, he sees all this. He kind of realizes because they also only check they have so much syrup in reserve that they only come by and like inspect stuff like once a year.
This is getting better and better.
Yeah, it's just 100% on the 100% on the honor system. And so from there, like Karen, basically like the light bulb goes off in his head. He's like, "Well, I'm going to start stealing the syrup." And he starts taking like some of the barrels and loading them up in a truck. And he drives them to like what's called like a sugar shack. And like a sugar shack is like where maple syrup like gets like produced and like where it like gets boiled down like in the sugars and stuff like that.
Sure.
And basically he's like emptying these he starts emptying out these barrels and then like just filling them back up with water.
Okay.
And then yeah, so he's treating this like the same way that like a 16-year-old like treats their dads like vodka. And they're like we're just gonna put some water in it and we're not gonna we're not gonna like really think too much about it. And they actually end up like because the like stealing the syrup, especially for them, is like very easy. But the problem is like FPAC has like an iron grip, and they have to like find a black market for the syrup because they can't sell the syrup like via FPAC because like FPAC is gonna want to cut, and they're also gonna be like, aren't you the guy that like is holding onto our syrup?
Yeah, you're the Maple Man.
Yeah, you don't sell Escobar cocaine. Like,
Yeah. No.
I mean, I guess
Give a shit.
technically somebody does, but that's totally different. Um, so yeah, basically, like they start doing this, and they find a syrup black market, which is actually like a pretty serious thing in Canada. And this is where like a lot of the people like kind of like the bootleggers, like how in the 20s Americans were doing this with like liquor and stuff like that. Like a lot of Canadians that like don't like FPAC are trying to basically create a secondary or a black market for syrup.
Wow. It's amazing how other people live. Like this is wild, dude. I'm legit taking notes right now.
That's good. That's good. I like it. So basically like the way that they like wanted to start doing this because like once they realized or once he realized that there was some money to be made here, he realized that he kind of like needed to scale his operation up, and so he starts reaching out to a couple people. One of them is a guy named Raymond Valerays, and there was a out of province like I don't know which province he was from, but he was from a different part of Canada, and he was a syrup reseller named Etienne Saint Pierre, which is a great criminal name as well.
Jesus, these fucking guys, man. I tell you.
And so basically, like what they end up doing to like scale up their operations is they actually go and start like renting space out in a warehouse, like where the syrup is stored, basically just to create an alibi. They're like, oh yeah, like we rent some space in this warehouse. This is why we're here all the time, which
Okay.
is pretty smart.
Yeah, you need a good cover story. If you're gonna do some dirt, you gotta have a good cover story. You need to, you need a go-to, something that people can relate and just like, kind of like fluff off. Like, all right, cool.
Exactly. Again, it doesn't have to be like elaborate, but like it'd be weird if he was like, yeah, I'm just checking out my wife's warehouse, and they're like 6 times this week. That's weird.
Yeah.
But they decide to rent out some space in there, and it works out well. And they end up also recruiting a truck driver named Sebastian Jutras.
Again
And
with these fucking names, dude.
I know, they're crazy. And so basically, what they start doing is they just start with like a couple barrels at a time. They'll load them up in the truck, move them to a secondary location, usually one of the sugar shacks, and then they'll siphon them into their own barrels because they had their own barrels waiting. They would siphon the syrup out, replace it with water, and then just bring the original barrels back to the warehouse.
Okay.
And a lot of times, like when they would do this, like they would move the syrup that they had stolen out of Quebec because then it was like out of FPAC's jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And like they're not great at this because they get caught like pretty early. One of the security guards like actually is like, "Hey there, I see what you're doing with the syrup, and you're putting it in the one, and it's a big shell and cup game. No." Uh, but they're able to bribe them. They're like, "You don't want to die over syrup. Like we'll give you a couple bucks," and look the other way. It's like, "Oh yeah, that's just keep her moving," like that kind of thing.
You got to grease a few arms, man. That's how you do it in this world.
You do because if you try to grease it with syrup, it's gonna stick.
That was going to be my next line. So, well played, sir. Well played.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so like they start this in 2011, and it runs pretty smoothly for almost a year. Like they're able to just continue to continue to like pull off the scheme, and like they've got a couple fences and things like that where they can sell their black market syrup and things like that.
Okay.
But they start to get greedy, which is the downfall of so many good criminals.
Yeah, dude. It is very frustrating.
It is frustrating. They could do better.
Yeah.
And basically like what ends up happening is they start like getting lazy and not filling the barrels back up.
Oh, with the other.
Yeah, like they just
They.
realize they're like, oh, we can just like put the barrels like in the warehouse. Like we don't have to fill them up with water. And so in
So.
July of 2012, they get inspected by FPAC because they do annual inspections basically to make sure that everything is still good.
Yeah.
And he starts like trying to like climb over some of the barrels to like get a count, and it's empty, so it like topples over.
Oh, what an idiot.
Yeah, because normally like 55 gallons, like syrup's a little denser than water. I think an average barrel is going to weigh something like 600 pounds. I think for water, it's like usually 10 pounds per gallon, so it would be like 540 pounds, and it's a little denser, so it's like closer to 600.
Sure. Okay.
But when one of the barrels just like falls over, like when he's trying to climb on it, he's like, "That's not anywhere near right."
What the
And
fuck?
yeah,
How do you even explain that?
that's that's my question because like when you do that with like bourbon and stuff like that, like there's like a certain amount that gets evaporated by the wood every year, and that's
Yeah.
called like the angel share.
Yep.
But you can't like do that with like you can't do that with syrup because like a it's a metal barrel, but you can't be like, oh yeah, the angels had a bit of a sweet tooth this year, huh? Uh, and I realize that I'm doing a bad Canadian accent, but I'm really just trying to talk like my dad.
It's awesome. It's so bad. It's awesome.
And I mean that's basically like the story of this heist. Like they're able to do it for a year or for about a year, and they're able to make like a lot of money. Uh, a bunch of people end up getting arrested. I think over like it's a couple dozen that like get associated with the crime, like between drivers and like resellers and things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Um, but the most prominent sentence actually goes to this Richard Valier's guy. He gets the harshest sentence because he was kind of the guy, like kind of the guy coordinating it. Like I know that Avic had kind of had the idea because his wife was renting the warehouse out,
Yeah.
but Richard was kind of the one that was like, oh, well, I know people that can like move things, and so he was kind of the ringleader. And he got sentenced to 8 years in prison with a $9.4 million fine. And if he doesn't pay that fine back, then his sentence goes to 14 years.
I mean, that really puts a price tag on prison. Like, I wonder what Canadian prison is like. Like, I don't know, man. Is 5 years really worth 9.5? Like, could you do 14 years for $9.5 million?
In a Canadian prison, absolutely.
Yeah, dude.
I would do like I think about this a lot. Like Scandinavia, there's a lot of countries where I would like absolutely pull off a heist because as long as I don't like get a gun involved, like I could be out in like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%.
And Canadian prison, I imagine, is okay. Like Canadian people are tough, but I don't think that like they also have like pretty good like morals as a government in terms of like human rights and treatment and stuff like that. So I think 14 years would suck. But if it was like you get to keep the 9 million after that, then
Yeah.
that's I'm not going to make that work in.
Yeah, dude. I would do 20 years to keep 9 million. I would do
That's
20 years to keep 5 million. Are you kidding me? You break that out, you know?
Yeah. We'll talk after the show. Uh,
Petey, we're talking about maple syrup, man. Let's bring it back.
that'd be so funny. But yeah, so that's basically what happens, and most of the syrup never gets recovered. Like it's all sold to different parts of the black market, and it all like a lot of it gets down. Like you've probably had some of this black market maple syrup because nobody else knows. Like it's, it's not like a wine where you can be like, oh, this is absolutely like the vintner like depends. It's tree juice and it's
Yeah,
delicious, but like nobody. It's like it's hard to trace that.
yeah. I
Uh,
mean, yeah. It's man. It makes me want to go to Canada now, like real bad.
Canada's a fun time.
I've had one very memorable trip in Canada when I was 22. I got robbed by a stripper.
Oh my god,
Yeah, yeah. Stole $100 right out of my pocket.
that's
But
that's
good for her. I mean, it was a great con job.
well,
Great
there.
con job.
That's good to hear. Maybe that'll be another episode one day.
If you ever go up there, it's one of the nicest strip clubs I've ever been to. When I used to go to strip clubs, it's called For Your Eyes Only.
Oh, it sounds like a spy movie. I like it.
Yeah, it's real. Yeah, it's real nice. It's actually right on the water. It's
Okay.
pretty dope.
The only time I've been to Canada, I went like for a ski trip with a couple of my buddies. Like, God, 15, 20 years ago now,
Yeah.
and we weren't even in like a cool part of Canada. Like we lived in Wisconsin. We just drove north and like up through Minnesota, and it took us like God. It took us probably like an hour to reach like the first town, and it was like a suburb. Like it wasn't even like a big city because there weren't any. Like, but we got to Thunder Bay, and I remember like once we crossed the border, like we forgot that they used the metric system, and so we see gas for like $1 a gallon, or what we think is $1 a gallon, and we're like, oh, that's awesome. We did not realize it was like per liter, so it was like 3 times as much. We filled up our tank. We're like, why is this so expensive? And then like same thing with like the speed limits. We're like 110. This is nuts in
Yeah.
the winter, and we almost hit a moose, and it was a good
Oh
time.
shit! Wow.
Yeah, like one was like running out like across the highway in front of us, and it like slipped on the ice,
Oh fuck.
and like yeah, just like crashed. Because there was like a mom and then like a baby, and the baby like slid and like hit its jaw on the road and like kept going, and the mom was like in the road. It was like I've never been more terrified. Like moose are
Yeah.
like the scariest animals.
Dude, there is a great Instagram account called Nature is Metal, and it's one of the best animal IG accounts. And they have a clip of a moose. These people were on these back roads driving at night, and a moose came out of nowhere with her young, and the people stopped, and the mother moose thought that the people were like coming after her kid, and she charged the car and like fucked it up, dude.
Oh, I bet. Like that's
Yeah,
terrifying.
dude, they are massive, massive animals.
They're enormous. Like
Yeah,
elk too. Like I saw like a wild elk when I was in Arizona at the Grand Canyon. Like we just like turned a corner, and all of a sudden there's like an 8 foot tall like monster with like 12 feet tall after its horn or its
yeah,
antlers, and
oh
you're
yeah,
like, what the hell? Like that's just I could die so many ways.
yeah, oh yeah. It's so funny because they look docile, but like they they just have an instinct for like it's almost like when they say they can smell fear. Like if you move in any one direction the wrong way, they're coming after you.
Oh, for sure they are.
Jeez. Now, would you rather get chased by a moose or do 15 years in a Canadian prison?
I'm fat as hell. I gotta take the prison. Like I'm not outrunning shit. Like
That's great. You
I
know your
I
limits.
I do know my limits. Like I would almost rather get chased by like a black bear because at least I think I could fight a black bear.
Okay. Yeah.
Like maybe not like a full grown one, but like a teenager bear. Like I could like hurt it enough to like get it to like leave.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm like knocking it out. I'm not like winning the fight like unless it's by decision. But
Yeah. I mean, I read somewhere recently that they said that if you curl up in a ball, it's like one of the worst things you could do.
yeah, so there's like we're gonna get into bear attacks here because this is something I know too much about. So there's actually like three different strategies for bear attacks. Like so if it's a black bear and you play dead, like it just thinks because they scavenge a lot, it's like, oh thanks, like hot lunch.
Yeah.
And it's just gonna start eating you like right away. So you have to fight a black bear back.
Wow.
Um, and like a brown bear, like that's gonna be like because they're more hunters than they are like gatherers. So like that, like you want to play dead because it kind of needs the thrill of the kill,
Mm-hmm.
and it's gonna just like if it thinks you're dead, it's just like, oh, this is like garbage, and like maybe it'll come back and like take a couple nibbles, but like it prefers to hunt itself. And if it's a polar bear, you're just absolutely fucked. Like there's no
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do.
No.
Like
Yeah.
but
Yeah, dude. I did not believe that when I heard that at first. Like polar bears are the most dangerous bear on the face of the earth.
oh,
Uh, they,
not even close.
dude, they kill baby polar bears just for the mere fact of eventually the baby polar bear will steal could possibly steal food from them. Any species that kills their young for fear of something that's going to happen in the future, you can't fuck with them.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's true. I saw a video of a polar bear pulling like a full grown walrus out of the water by its neck.
wow.
Like that's like a 900 pound like minimum animal.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like, oh, get out of like it's like, no, we're gonna do this on land and just like grabbed it and like it was insane. Like they're
Yeah.
like just unholy beasts. Like they're probably my favorite animal, but
Okay.
like they're nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Bears are fucking scary, man. The claws on their paws are like the size of my fucking hand.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's like a catcher's mitt.
Yeah. I'll never forget when I saw The Revenant in the movie theater in that scene where that bear attacks Leonardo DiCaprio. You're like, what's going on right now? How do you even survive that? Like
Yeah,
that bear treated him like a dish rag.
it did. It did not care at all.
No. No. Yeah, yeah, dude, no, not at all. I would, yeah. Hopefully, if there's a bear attack, I just shit my pants, and then it'll smell it and run away.
Hopefully, like, that's not a bad way to. I mean, it's not a great way to deal with it because like then you're probably just gonna die with shitty pants.
Yeah,
But it's it's an option.
yeah, that would be a grisly crime scene to see some dead person from an attack and wonder what happened. Like, I don't know what happened. I just came up and I saw a guy that was bloody and he shit his pants. I don't what.
Yeah, that's gotta be bad.
And pour some maple syrup on him and run away.
Exactly. Maple syrup. Like, I wonder if like Canadian bears like maple syrup more than like because like normal bears like honey. Like, I wonder if like Canadian bears would be like, oh, maple syrup is delicious and there's no bees.
Yeah, I could see that though. Adapting to your surroundings,
Yeah.
for sure, for sure. Yeah.
Awesome. So, bro, if people want to like catch you on Instagram or Twitter or anything like that, what's the best way for them to find you?
So follow me at the my handle is at Ralph the Mouth 81. Twitter and IG. I'm really trying to build up my Twitter following. I mean, I'm trying to build up both, but that's I post more on Twitter. And yeah, just follow me.
Awesome. Yeah.
Nonsense.
It's a it's a super fun account. Like you tweet some really funny stuff. So definitely check Ralph out. And if you want to check out the show and you're not sure where to find us, just at I Can Steal That on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. We're also icanstealthat.com. And you can search our Patreon and get added to that. We're about to add a bonus episode, and I'm revamping the Patreon right now, but we've got a couple people that have already stepped up to support the show. And if you want to do that via Patreon, that's a great way to do it, and that's very appreciated. It's just going to help make the show even better.
That's awesome, man. And dude, congratulations. This is the first time I've seen you, so I'm very proud of you. Very happy for the success of this, and then your newfound opportunity.
Thank you. I'm excited about that. I just sent out the outline for the book, so
Sick.
waiting to hear a little bit of feedback on that. But I'm excited about it. I think it'll be a really fun project.
That's amazing. Now they found you. They found the podcast, or they found you. How did that all come about? I mean, if
Yeah.
you don't mind me asking.
Oh yeah, no worries. So they actually found the podcast, and they were like, okay, like perfect, because they wanted to get this book made, and then they must have just like started searching Heist, and the podcast came up. They listened to a few episodes and liked it, and then like reached out about writing the book. So
Wow.
I'm
Yeah,
pretty.
dude, that's awesome, man. That's so cool. People love that shit, man. Everybody loves a good robbery. One of my favorite books was The Great Train Robbery.
Nice. We're actually we're gonna do an episode on that in like three episodes.
No shit, really? Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome, man. I'm definitely gonna check that one out.
Awesome. Yeah, maybe I might bring you back as a guest on that one.
Would love to, man. This is a great platform, great format, and obviously, yeah, you're you. So you're one of those as I know. So I'm always down to help.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been
Thank
super
you.
fun. And if you like the podcast, like definitely go ahead, leave a rating, review. It just helps us find a bigger audience every single week. This has been I Can Steal That, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Cool. So that's done. It's done.